Have you been watching Major League Baseball this year? Have you actually tuned into the NLCS, the ALCS, the World Series? If you have, you probably noticed some differences about the way the game is played today. That's not an accident. That's because of the pandemic. Back in April and May, baseball had decided temporarily that they were going to switch up the rules for this unforeseen circumstance. What did that mean? Universal DH, a new extra innings rule, limits on relief pitchers and how long they could stay in a game. All of these rules became front and center for baseball. And if you're a loyal listener or viewer of this show, you remember back in April and May, I said, these may seem like one-year solutions, they may seem temporary, but mark my words, there's an agenda behind it. Baseball for years, even decades, have been considering these changes. All they needed was one excuse to make them permanent. Thank you, COVID-19. Rob Manfred came out the other day after proclaiming originally that these rules were temporary and said he's open to them being permanent. He wants a universal DH. He wants to keep the extra innings rule. We'll talk about that in a second. And he wants to keep playoff expansion relevant. We're talking about 14 teams regularly getting to the postseason. That makes baseball the NBA. In an interview he gave, a wide-ranging interview, he said, quote, people were wildly unenthusiastic about the changes, and then when they saw them in action, they were much more positive. Really? Positive? All year, people have been complaining about these changes. People don't want these permanently. Baseball purists, like myself, who actually enjoy the intricacies of the game, don't want it to be disvalued by these changes. The game originally, for what it is beautiful. It's baseball. There's strategy. It's the thinking man's game. There's a reason why it's called that. And instead, baseball is deviating away from its brand, and now it's becoming the NBA. Now it's becoming fireworks and offense and home runs. It's become the NFL, too. And to make matters worse, now we're letting everybody into the playoffs. Not just a select few, not just the best of the best, right? Like it should be. No. If you're 500, you're in. If you're under 500, Houston Astros, you're in. How are these changes beneficial to the game? The game itself. I know financially baseball's done well, right? Ratings are up. Game 7 of the NLCS outrated any game from the NBA Finals. Think about that. A league championship series game, not even the World Series, outranked the finals. Featuring LeBron James, supposedly America's biggest athlete. TV ratings in general, local TV ratings were up 4%. Now that obviously has something to do with no fans in the stands, but the point is those are good numbers. When this pandemic ends and fans are back in stadiums, I guarantee you attendance will probably go up. These moves may be good for business. And I get it, baseball's a business, every sport's a business, they're in it to make money. But at what point do you prioritize money over the sanctity of the game? At what point do you say, I'm going to sell out? I think baseball has finally reached that point. They're the last to do it, I'll give them credit. The NBA did it a long time ago, the NFL the same. But it should be a sad day for any baseball fan, whether you like these changes or not. This is a sad day for the game of baseball. Its founders are probably rolling in their graves right now. They can't believe what they're watching. Universal DH. Essentially, every team into the postseason. Come on in. Extra innings rules. Relief pitcher minimums. No freedom for the manager to put in and take out relief pitchers. What are we doing? And it's so funny. All of those changes, especially the relief pitcher and the extra innings rule, they were put in for one reason: to curb down the average game length. Oh my gosh. Each MLB game averages 3 hours, 5 minutes. We have to find a way to cut that down to 250 minimum. If we're going to do that, let's do this, this, and this. Let's put in all these new rules. This will generate interest. This will also take down that average time. That was the whole point behind all of these changes. But the ironic part is this. This season, average game time went up again. Went up again. 3 hours, 7 minutes, 46 seconds. Up from 3 hours, 5 minutes, 35 seconds in 2019 without the changes. How did those rules affect anything? They didn't. We're being bamboozled and lied to again. Just like we were back in April and May when Rob Manfred said these are only temporary. Don't freak out, purists. It's just a one-year thing due to the pandemic. I said at the time, many other people said at the time, why are these changes necessary for a pandemic baseball season? The game should be the same. I don't see the NFL making serious changes to the game or the NBA besides the bubble. There were no changes to the actual gameplay for either of those two leagues. Why did the MLB say they needed them this year for this situation when no one else did anything? That should have tipped you off. You should have been asking yourself those questions back when all this news and information came out. This had nothing to do with the pandemic. This had everything to do with ushering in decades upon decades of theories, of thoughts. For years, baseball has wanted this to happen. They think it's best for the game now. We need to appeal to a new generation. We need to be more offensive-minded. We need to be more entertaining. We need to cut down game time. All of those things have been circulating in the minds of Rob Manfred and his contemporaries for years. And they used the pandemic to put in everything. You name it, it's in there now. The baseball that we once knew and loved and cherished is gone forever. We're never going back to that era of baseball, the golden era of baseball. That should concern you. That should worry you. You should have a problem with that. If you don't, then obviously you like the game for the entertainment. You don't like the game for what it really is. You don't like the sanctity of the game. You just like the idea of the game. And if that's your preference, fine. It's not mine. I love the game for what it is. I study the game. I know the game. I don't appreciate what's being pulled here. Now we're going to make this permanent. Now we're going to make baseball the NBA, where every team gets to the playoffs. No thanks. I talked about this last week. I said had the Astros won the World Series, I would have put an asterisk next to their name. They were 29-31. Do you want that every year to happen in baseball? Think about what happened this year. Okay, throw out the ratings, throw out the TV revenue. When you watched games, were you happy with what you saw? Did you enjoy the extra inning rule? Be honest. Did you enjoy the universal DH? Did you enjoy the fact that relievers had to have a 3-batter minimum? Did you enjoy the 7-inning doubleheaders? My guess is not everybody could say, I enjoyed every single one of those changes. Guaranteed. There aren't many people who will sit here and actually defend every single one of those. I won't defend any of them. They all ruin the game. Why is no one talking about this? Why is nobody outraged right now? This effectively ends baseball as we know it. People are just moving on. Baseball doesn't care because it's making money. And everyone else is just falling in line. Sure, I'll do it. I'll accept it. I don't care. The beauty of baseball for years, in my opinion, has been the fact that you have to be damn good to even get to the postseason, let alone win a World Series. We could go back and forth about the universal DH, the extra innings. Let's talk about the playoffs themselves and the champions of the game. Every team that wins a World Series is elite. Not just good, elite. The teams that make the playoffs, for the most part, are good. Some of which elite. Are you really okay with average, even mediocre teams now getting in? Do you want to see the Orlando Magics of baseball get in with an under 500 record? Think about this. We talk about the Bulls all the time. Did you know that before the bubble, before the pandemic, they were 5 games out of a playoff spot? The Bulls, who apparently were in the middle of a rebuild. Do you want that to happen to baseball? Do you want teams who have clearly said, we're in a rebuild, to technically contend for a playoff spot? I don't. I don't want to see teams who clearly state they want to lose end up getting into the postseason. That could happen in baseball now. If we keep it at 14 or 16 teams. I was hesitant from the beginning when we added the second wild card spot. When that was added to the equation, I was already questioning it. Again, no one else did. No one else cared. I was a bit worried about it. The system that I've loved, that I've grown used to, has been the one after the 94 labor strike. One wild card team, NLDS best of 5, LCS World Series best of 7. That's it. You have your division winners, 3. You have a wild card team, 4. 8 teams out of 30 made it. Less than a third of the league made the postseason. That's baseball. That's being elite. You have to be good. I'm not all for 1910s baseball, right? I'm not for the Cubs back in 1909 winning 100 games and missing the playoffs. Let's be honest. I don't want that. But it does have to be exclusive. You have to be good. 8 teams, great number. 10 teams, I was like, okay, we could get through that. 16, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Baseball should never cower down to the NBA or the NFL. Never. That's what makes baseball unique. That's what makes baseball attract different viewers than those who view the NFL and the NBA. That's what makes baseball great. That's a trademark of the game. Now I guess we're throwing everything away because of one pandemic. I didn't see baseball in the 1920s during the flu epidemic. I didn't see them make many changes. I didn't see them call a hiatus. I didn't see them make drastic, radical rule changes because of the flu. Why is baseball making drastic, radical rule changes because of COVID. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Baseball purists do not appreciate it. And I've said this before. You could call me a boomer. You could say I'm some 60-year-old idiot who doesn't know anything, even though I'm 20. Maybe I think like a 60-year-old, but you could say that about me, and that's fine. I'm not offended by it. I believe in the authenticity of baseball. I believe in the sanctity of the game. I believe that we need to get back to basics here. Stop turning it into a scoring fest. Stop turning it into what it's not. It's not the NBA. It's not the NFL. It's not highly offensive driven. We don't watch games to see an 11-10 score every single time. Real baseball fans appreciate the small things. They appreciate a pitcher's duel. They appreciate a walk-off home run in the ninth. They appreciate a 1-0, 2-1 win. That's what baseball fans like. That's what I like. And just think, all of that you once loved is going to be gone for good. Thank you, Rob Manfred. You might be winning when it comes to money. You might be winning when it comes to interest and TV ratings. That's fine. But as you continue to sell out for that, remember, your core base is getting further and further alienated from the game they once loved. That's not going to be good for business. That's not going to be good for anybody involved. Remember who put you up to this point. Remember who got you here. It was your base. And if you end their interest, then this game will never be the same. More to come here on Sports Talk Chicago. My interview with Dan Hampton comes up next, so stay tuned. Hey, Bears fans, did you see the line for the Bears-Rams this weekend? It's +6. Bears are 6-point underdogs in Los Angeles this weekend. How would you want to capitalize on a bet like that? I mean, think about it. +6, that's nothing. The Bears could easily win that game and cover that spread, if anything. And I have a great way for you to make some easy money off of it without knowing a lot about betting. I've used this method before. I know nothing about betting, and I still made money. Here's what you have to do. Go to sportstalkchicago.com/cash. sportstalkchicago.com/cash. Illinois residents only, 21 plus. You'll get $250 free dollars to bet on the Bears game, to bet on any game you want this weekend. It's a great deal. You don't need to know a lot about betting. You get free money, and you can make a lot more than what you put down. $250 free dollars right now at sportstalkchicago.com/cash. That's sportstalkchicago.com/cash. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.